we're calling the meeting back to order. And the first thing that we will do is do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll ask Mr. Nix if you could lead it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, your attention is called to emergency exits. In case of an emergency, go to an exit. And please remember that our entire district is smoke-free, all buildings, all grounds, no smoking related activities. The next thing on the agenda is going to be board consent agenda. We have the minutes and the board. Okay. Can we have a motion to accept or to consent to items C 1 through 5, or should we take anything separately?
No,
1 through 5? Okay, motion by Mr. Nix, second by Mr. Parker. Any discussion? All in favor? So 7 in favor, passes. The consent items are now approved. Then we have, I believe this is your
I think
area?
it's my turn.
It is.
Thank you.
We've been waiting for this.
Yes, I am. Our first recognition this evening is for a gentleman that has been providing safety and security services for the district since September 2007, Waverly Busby. Mr. Busby began in the district as a substitute guard in September 2007. He quickly moved through the security ranks, first a full-time responder at Vern W. Pritz, where he was beloved by families and students and friends, and then serving as coordinator of the department for the last 2 years, where he was phenomenal. We unfortunately missed him during our June recognitions because as a retired New York City police officer, this was his second career, but we did not forget him, which is why he is here this evening. Mr. Busby's service to students, staff, and families in our district was invaluable. We thank you for your insight that brought about departmental improvements and your unwavering, dedicated service to the children in our school community. Thank you so much. You will be truly missed. Mr. Busby. You don't have to speak. No.
Thank you to the board, to staff, students, responders, everybody, thank you. I appreciate the support and any accomplishments that were made by me. Definitely is through the support and guidance of everybody in the district, so thank you very much, appreciate it.
Settle down for a photo.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, coordinate. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Our next recognitions are for some students who did some outstanding work this past school year in our production grant. Let me introduce Mr. Hogan.
Thank you. Good evening. This past June, the cast and crew from this year's musical production of Rent participated in the 17th Annual Teenie Awards at South Holt High School. The Teenie Awards is a mirror of Broadway's Tony Awards, recognizes high school musical and theater productions with a red carpet ceremony, musical performances by students from each of the participating schools, and awards recognition. Sponsored by the East End Arts Council located in Riverhead. Members of that organization attend productions at all East End high schools throughout the year and nominate individual students for their exceptional performances. In total, 10 high schools from Bellport to Shelter Island were in attendance, each performing one scene from their respective productions as selected by members of the Arts Council. Bellport was honored for their outstanding performance of Rent with 5 individual student nominations. I would like to recognize all 5. We have one here this evening. We have the parents of another one here this evening who is actually in a production at Gateway, rehearsing currently. For recognition honor in pit orchestra, David Belante. For lead female in a musical, Erin Kelly, represented by her parents. And for supporting female in a musical, Caitlin Madalena. Recognition honor in assistant director, Maya McCullough. And finally, last but not least, lead male in a musical, Tyler Zapata. Congratulations.
Well, I'm gonna get the rest of this. I told you.
Congratulations.
Continuing on with my report tomorrow, July 25th, we will conduct the pre-kindergarten lottery to determine full-day program placements requests for the coming school year. I am happy to report the district was able to increase our full-day pre-K opportunities from 20 from last school year to 74 in the coming school year. The lottery will take place at central office at 1:30, and all of those that have registered have been notified. And on Tuesday, September 3rd, we will be having our ribbon cutting ceremony for South Haven Early Childhood Center. Time of the event is still to be determined because it is the second day of our superintendent's conference day, and we need to coordinate it with that schedule as well. Trustees, please mark your calendar for Friday, August 30th, when we have scheduled our annual Board of Education walkthrough tour of our facilities. As in the past, Dr. Gurgis, Mr. Clements, and I will tour each building with the building principal and the chief custodian. If your schedule permits, please join us for some or all of the building school tours. I put the schedule in last week's update, and I will certainly put it in again to remind you of those times. And finally, we have a unique opportunity to pilot a new vaping detection device for the 2019-20 school year at no charge to the district. In return is our participation in a segment to be aired on the Today Show sometime early September, right before school starts. The segment will be designed to talk about this national problem and what schools are doing to address the problem. The Today Show wants to see the device called FlySense work and interview administrators and possibly a parent or student regarding this nationwide matter. The company will install 12 devices, 6 at the high school and 6 at the middle school in the bathroom sometime in July. The Today Show will visit the school to conduct interviews and videotaping between July 31st and August 5th, with an airing sometime before school. This opportunity will result in another preventative measure in keeping our students safe and healthy, and at no cost to the district. And for the board's information, the devices are valued at $995 each, or just under $12,000 in total, and that does not include the annual service fee, which is also waived. And that is all I have.
Thank you. I think we're up now to the public commentary part. I'm sorry. Okay, communication. Yes, we're up to the trustee and advisory committee report section. Any trustees?
No advisory committee report, but trustee.
Anything?
I'd just like to say thank you for having Mr. B. I was there at that last meeting, so I was a little bit saddened. And he knows that I've always been his biggest fan since my little guys were there, so you will definitely be missed. You were an asset to this district. Thank you.
Ms. DeSanto, did you have anything?
Actually did want to mention, I think quite a few of us were at the South Country Education Foundation cocktail party. It appeared to be a record number of attendees, though I haven't heard anything about how much money was raised that day, but as anyone who's been involved with the district knows that the South Country Education Foundation funds a plethora of amazing programs for our students, K through 12. So it's always a wonderful day when it's great weather and they have great turnout. So I'm looking forward to hearing about some of the grants. And actually, Mr. Budrus had told me a little bit about something that they're working on at the high school along with Mrs. O'Hagan. And I'm really looking forward to what's going to be happening with our 9th grade students, I believe. So some exciting things happening through those grants. So
Thank you.
really great to see.
Mr. Pacini?
I talked at the last meeting about Mr. Busby, and I'm happy you're retiring, but sad to see you go. Good luck in South Carolina, right? Good for you. If you were a Crit's family where he spent most of his time, you know how valuable he truly was, and I've said it before. He knew everybody's name that walked those halls. He knew every kid's name as they walked by, and it didn't take him long to learn those names. I don't know how he did it. So it's bittersweet because my son, who's going to be a junior, I met Mr. Busby when he entered kindergarten. And if you ever really want to see his effectiveness, just watch him hurt parents at the fun run, because nobody went around those lines when Mr. Busby set him up. But you truly have been an asset. So good luck to you, to your family. Enjoy yourself, and come back and visit us.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Nix?
I also was able to attend the South Country Education Foundation's annual cocktail party. It was a really beautiful event. I was so excited to see a lot of my fellow trustees there, many administrators, and teachers. Of course, it was really a beautiful event, and I wanted to just congratulate the Teenie Awards. Congrats to you. And I was hoping Erin would be here because I wanted to give her a nice little shout out. She's my neighbor. And but I know that she's rehearsing to be in a Gateway production. So look at our students graduating and already moving on to fabulous and beautiful things. So congrats to Erin and all of the nominees for the Teenie Awards. Thank you.
Mr. Parker?
I too attended the educational fund. It was amazing again. I can't say anything different than what everyone else has said, but I had a great time and I'll certainly do it again next year.
Mr. Trent?
I don't have
No. I would only repeat, so we'll skip. But I think we all do thank the Education Foundation for what they do every year to give some awards to be able to fund some special programs for our students. And along with Ms. DeSanto, it'll be a lot of fun to see what they're going to award this year. Okay. Now we're up to public commentary. On agenda items, this is where members of the public
Yes.
have an award Yeah, and get parents too. Yeah, we might. Okay, so Since you just made a timely entrance,
She knows how to make an entrance.
We're gonna take another group picture. Mr. Hogan said nice things about you.
Always.
All right, everybody, here we go.
Parents, do you want to?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any cards, Ms. Lynn? No.
okay. We have no cards, okay. So,
Items for discussion?
any discussion? We've got the school comprehensive education plans.
Yes.
Can you introduce that?
Yes, I certainly can. Our first item for discussion will be the comprehensive education plan for the district, Brookhaven Elementary School and Bellport Middle School. As the board knows, these improvement plans are a result of Bellport Middle School and Brookhaven Elementary School being designated as comprehensive support improvement schools by the State Education Department. There are 3 plans of action, for action. One for the district, one for the middle school, and one for Brookhaven. These plans do need Board of Education approval prior to being sent to the state by August 1st. The Education Department will then review the plans and provide feedback and edits prior to accepting and finalizing them. We are providing PDF versions of all 3 plans for the board's review in board docs. However, these are electronic submissions, as you will see when Mr. Small presents. And he will walk the board through the district plan to give the board an understanding of the tenets of effective school systems that we will be measured on, and answer any questions the board may have. Mr. Small?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gianni, and good evening, board members. I have the pleasure tonight of presenting to you the district's comprehensive improvement plan.
I don't mean to interrupt, but the board may wish to look at the screen rather than the PDF, just to get the flavor of what we're talking about. Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So the district's comprehensive improvement plan, there are 6 tenets that we had to develop a SMART goal for. So what I will do is review with you the SMART goals and then the action steps for each tenet, and I will also review with you the baseline data that we used to come up with those SMART goals. I would like to bring your attention to the fact that this year, as a result of the 2 buildings being identified by the state, one of the things that we did was to survey all our teachers throughout the district. We also invited our parents to partake in the survey as well. And we also surveyed our middle and high school students. And that gave us information from which we could use to develop goals for this plan. We also participated in the state coming down at the end of May to do needs assessments in both Brookhaven Elementary School and the middle school. And they were there over a 3-day period in both buildings. During those 3 days, they conducted interviews with parents, they conducted interviews with teachers, and they also conducted interviews with students on each of those days, 2 of the days. The students were selected randomly by the state reps, by the building principals, and by myself. I was part of the team. I also brought a director with me to be in each of the buildings while the state was conducting the needs assessments. They also, as part of that needs assessment, visited classrooms. Because Brookhaven Elementary School is a smaller building, we were able to visit all the classrooms at Brookhaven Elementary. At the middle school, we visited the vast majority of the classrooms at the middle school. So this plan was developed based on the information that we got from the needs assessment, the information we got from what students shared with us, what parents shared with us, what teachers shared with us, and also from the information we gleaned from the walkthroughs during the classroom, and also with the survey data. So, and we looked at other data as well to develop the plan. So as I go through them, we will see some of the information from other sources that we've used. For example, we used information related to student attendance. We used information related to suspensions. And so as we go through those, I will bring your attention to those. So tenet number 1, systems and organization. The baseline data, upon reflection, the district has identified the need to create systems and establish regular data meetings in order to analyze data from state, local, and third-party assessments. Although the district collects data, there has not been a consistent practice to share the data with building leaders and faculty members so that it can be used and to be analyzed and to make instructional decisions. So we regularly assess children. For example, K through 5, we give them 3 regular assessments each year, in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And throughout the course of the year, we'll give mid-year, we'll do, for example, at the elementary level, we do mid-year assessments. At the high school, we are doing quarterly assessments, and those systems were just put in place. But I think one of the things that we are recognizing, one of the things that the state recognized when they came, in the idea of people being able, all staff members and administrators being able to quantify and speak to data was one of the shortcomings that they see. And so while we're collecting the data, what we need to do is put systems in place to analyze it and to make sure it gets into the hands of teachers on a quicker basis so that instructional decisions can be made. That's a shortcoming that we recognize in the past, and the state has verified that. And so we are trying now to put it in, codify it, right, put it in a plan, so to make sure that it gets done. If you could move down so we could do, so the goal by June of 2020, the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, in collaboration with the district directors, will establish systems to collect, analyze, and distribute data to building level leaders each grading period. Data will include the local, state, and third-party assessments, as well as attendance, behavioral data. This will be measured and monitored by a calendar of meetings, minutes, and oversight from the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. So this time we're putting in place systems where meetings will be held, minutes will be collected, and agenda items so that we know that these meetings are happening, and we can know that data is being reviewed and being passed on to teachers so that timely instructional decisions can be made. Some of the action steps that we have provided so that the state will see that we are setting timelines for when things will be done. So between August and September, the Assistant Superintendent, which is myself, will, along with district directors, will adopt a data protocol, data-wise, to be used by all data committees in the district. Buildings will be required to have their own data committees that will sit down on a regular basis to look at data in their buildings and to pass that information on to faculty members and to ensure that that data is being used to guide practice in the buildings. I don't want to bore you with all of the steps. Also, we will collaborate with school leaders to develop the protocols to be used. Data meetings, or the dates will be identified and scheduled for data analysis. We're going to try to do those analyses right around the time when quarterly data is being collected, so it could be analyzed and so that decisions can be made. One of the things that we're doing is we're looking at different platforms that we can have all our data on one platform so that teachers are not going to different sources to look at data. So we started that process already. We have made a final decision on that. The district data teams will collect and distribute, for example, the NWEA map assessment data that we use at the elementary level to building principals. The data team will collect and distribute quarterly assessment data to secondary principals. And then the principals will guide their teams to analyze it and to get those information on to teachers. We'll go on to tenet number 2. School leadership. Classroom walkthroughs have, for the baseline data, classroom walkthroughs have not been conducted consistently. According to the data triangle, which is a survey that we did, 44% of students and 53% of teachers, of staff agreed or strongly agreed that administrators visited their classrooms. The short-term priorities from the state required us or suggested to us to have regular walkthroughs so that students and teachers will see their administrators in their classroom on a regular basis. Our goal is by June 2020, the assistant superintendent in collaboration with district and building leaders will demonstrate our commitment to high-quality teaching and learning through the establishment of a walkthrough tool and a schedule with evidence that 100% of our classrooms will have been visited as measured by the walkthrough form. Whenever we said the walkthrough, what teachers shared with us, oftentimes, most of the time, administrators were in their classroom or for the formal observations for their APPR. And students even shared the fact that they wanted at Brookhaven, they wanted to see their principals more often. So one of the things that we want to do is to ensure that there's a system in place for regular walkthroughs to basically be in there to see what is going on, to see how instruction is being provided, to provide positive feedback to our teachers as we go forward, so that the process of teaching and learning is constantly being monitored, and that feedback and suggestion can be provided on a timely basis so that corrective measures can take place. And so the action steps that will be done is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction will communicate the expectation to building leaders for greater visibility and the need to establish a daily walkthrough schedule. The Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction and district leaders will collaborate to create a walkthrough protocol with specific look-fors so that when we are in classrooms, we're looking for specific things, common things, so that when we collect data about what we're seeing, we all are looking from the same lens. This district and school leaders will schedule professional learning opportunities for faculty related to the specific areas. So one of the things that we saw when we did our needs assessment, for example, learning targets or learning objectives. We saw that in most classrooms, learning objectives were not being used, or when it was being used, how they were developed was not the most effective way for students to know what they're expected to learn and be able to do as a result of instruction. So based on those things, when we have a common document that we are using to do the walkthroughs, we have common look-fors that we are looking for or we're targeting when we go into classrooms. We can use that as another piece of data of what kind of professional development and supports we're providing to teachers, whether it's about instructional learning objectives, whether it's about how students are being questioned for higher order questions, how students are being given opportunities for student-to-student discussion, or whether or not we're seeing students being given the opportunity to use hands-on manipulatives in math classes and so forth. That document will collect data that we could further use to improve our practices in the classroom. Tenet number 3. Curriculum. The district recognizes the need to align our curriculum with the New York State learning standards and to support diverse students. To support diverse student needs in order to have a viable and coherent curriculum, vertical and horizontal alignment is required. What we want to ensure, and one of the things that we saw during some of our walkthroughs and at the needs assessments, is that when we go from one classroom to the next on one grade level, we want to see consistency. We're not necessarily looking for all teachers to be on the same page on the same day. But in terms of resources, we have purchased a significant amount of resources for our teachers. And we want to ensure that those resources are being used. So if we are in a building where we're going to third grade classrooms, we want to ensure that there is consistent use of the resources that have been provided. If we are in any of the buildings, elementary buildings, we want to ensure that all the buildings are using the resources that have been provided. If we go from one grade to the other, we want to ensure that it's being used because each one of those grade are preparing students for what is to come for the next grade. And when there is not consistent usage of the resources that we provided, our students are going up with gaps in the experiences that have been provided to them. And so that is one of the issues that we're seeing, that we are trying to address, to ensure that the curriculum, the planned and articulated curriculum that the district has adopted is the curriculum that is taught in our classrooms. Okay, and we want to ensure that when we now develop assessment, we are assessing the written and taught curriculum that the district has adopted. And so the walkthrough will give us additional information as we do those informal walkthroughs to ensure that those things are taking place. And so the action steps will be that district and building leaders will collaborate with faculty to develop curriculum maps and pacing calendars. We do that, and we're currently doing curriculum writing, and so that has to be done on a wider scale. For example, we have moved mapping focus from grade 5 to now it's going to be a K through 8 program, so we're going to have to develop pacing charts and maps to ensure that the grade 6 through 8 teachers will be able to pace themselves and be able to cover the intended curriculum for their respective grade levels. District and building leaders will provide teachers with professional learning opportunities on the new curriculum and instructional strategies. That is part of the professional development program that we have each year. We've solicited from our teachers feedback about the previous year's PD opportunities we gave them and what we can do better. And we take those suggestions when we develop the PD for the upcoming year. But also with the initiatives that the district is undergoing, we make sure that part of the PD opportunities that we provide is to provide teachers with support about how to use the resources that we've purchased and given to them so that they will be able to effectively use those resources. And so this tenet speaks to the fact that we are looking for consistency from grade level to grade level and from building to building in terms of implementation of the curriculum that we've purchased. Tenet number 4. Instruction. Our baseline data, the review by the Integrated Intervention Team by New York State revealed a lack of rigor and higher order thinking during instructional practices in most classrooms. Students were primarily asked low-level questions that required short or single-word responses. There were few instances where students were required to explain or extend their thinking. In addition, most activities observed during class visits consisted of fill-in-the-blank packets and worksheets that did not require students to think critically. It was observed in most classrooms, discussions were between teacher and students with few opportunities for student-to-student discourse provided. And so one of the things that we are trying now to rectify is to develop a goal that says by June 2020, 100% of teachers will demonstrate evidence of using higher order thinking, higher order questioning, and facilitating meaningful student-to-student discourse as measured by the district-developed walkthrough protocols. So as I said before, the protocol will have look-fors. One of the look-fors we will be looking for is how often are we seeing students engage in discussions with each other? How often are we seeing students engage in working collaboratively with each other? We want to walk into classrooms where kids are doing most of the work doing work. Those who are doing the work are the ones doing the learning. We want to make sure that when we walk into the classroom, it's not a matter of students filling out packets, but they're actively engaged in the learning process. They're actively engaged in solving real-world problems. They're actively engaging in having book discussions and talking about what they're reading. We want to make sure that if they're doing math, they're engaged in problem solving, they're engaged in being given the opportunity to explain how they got their answers and to show the different strategies they've used to solve their problems. We want to ensure that we're giving our students the best opportunity to develop 21st century skills in terms of problem solving and thinking critically. And so those are part of some of the things that we'll be working on as we go through this upcoming year. And the action steps are listed below, that district and building leaders will develop a walkthrough protocol for observing higher order tasks, questioning activities, and in student-to-student discourse. District and building leaders will communicate to teachers the expectations for higher order tasks, questioning activities, and student-to-student discourse. The district and building leaders, along with curriculum consultants, will provide teachers with professional development support in the classroom, and other tasks, questioning and activities, and student discussions. So as we are developing our professional development activities for this year, those are some of the things that we will look for in terms of how do we provide teachers with support to ensure that they will be able to engage students in more of giving students the opportunities to have discussions with each other, to give students the opportunity to justify their thinking, explain their answers, and so forth. And so we will be targeting those things for the upcoming school year. Social and emotional. Time for social and emotional. In the 2017-18 school year, the district's chronic absenteeism rate was 18.4%. In 2018-2019 school year, the chronic absentee rate was 20%. In 2017-2018 school year, the district had 83 in-school suspensions and 506 out-of-school suspensions, of which 58 ended in superintendent's hearing. For 2018-19 school year, the district had 62 in-school suspensions, 497 out-of-school suspensions, of which 62 ended in superintendent's hearing. By June of 2020, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, in collaboration with district and building leaders, will develop a consistent framework for embedding social and emotional learning in all areas of the curriculum, as measured by a 5% decrease in suspensions and discipline referrals and chronic absenteeism. The bottom line is we're looking for less students being kicked out of schools. We want our schools to be a place where it belongs to the children and children are in school. So we are looking to ensure that we're providing our teachers with the opportunity to embed social and emotional learning in our classrooms. We want to ensure that less kids are being suspended. We want to ensure that more kids are coming to school. We believe that we have a significant amount of resources in the district in terms of social workers, guidance counselors, psychologists. We have purchased social emotional curriculum such as Mind Up, Second Step. We have an array of support services, and we want to ensure that those are being embedded on a daily basis in the curriculum to ensure that students are being given the supports that will keep them in the classrooms. We also believe that they're engaged in the learning process and they're being supported socially and emotionally, that we will cut down on rates of suspensions and disruptive behaviors. And we also believe that it will be an incentive for students to be in school on a more regular basis. And so one of those things that we will do, as for example with the data team, is to regularly monitor and review data on suspensions, to regularly monitor and review our attendance rates, to ensure that interventions are being provided to catch those kids who are not in school and to ensure that we get them and engage them in coming back into school. So we will be, again, paying careful attention to the data review to ensure that we are catching kids who are being suspended at high rates, to ensure we are engaging with those kids who are chronically absent, to ensure that they're back in school, and to find out the root causes of why they're out of school, to ensure that we can engage them in the process of teaching and learning and keep them in schools more frequently. So by action steps, the district and building leaders will determine which SEL curriculum is implemented at each grade level. District and building leaders will collect data on student suspensions, discipline referrals, and absenteeism. Building data teams will review data on student suspensions, discipline referrals, and absenteeism to determine trends and patterns throughout the year. School counselors, social workers, and school psychologists will provide guidance and support to staff and students for the SEL curriculum. District and building leaders will provide professional development to staff in trauma, mindfulness, and restorative justice practices. And district and building leaders will provide support to teachers in the implementation of restorative practices. Last year, Mr. Hogan and a group of teachers at the high school went out for training in restorative practices. We plan to do that again, both at the high school and the middle school, because again, the purpose is to keep kids in school. And so we are trying to build the capacity of our staff members and administrators to ensure that discipline, that suspension is not the go-to measure for dealing with infractions, but we are using different approaches to ensure that we can keep kids in school as much as we possibly can. And tenet number 6, parent and family engagement. Based on the data from PLC, Family Engagement Survey, 55.8% of our district families agreed or strongly agreed that their school actively engages their family in conversations around student needs and progress. At the elementary level, 85% of the parents at Vernon Crates agreed with that statement. 73.7% at Kramer Street family agreed with that statement. 76% of the Brookhaven families agreed or strongly agreed, and 60% of the families at Frank P. Long strongly agreed or agreed with that statement. At the secondary level, 37% of Belport Middle School families agreed with the statement that they were being engaged, and at the high school we had 37%. So the trend that we're seeing based on feedback from parents is that the lower grades, parents are feeling that they're being engaged in the process, they're feeling welcomed in the process, but as the kids go up to the upper grades, starting at Frank P. Long, the middle school and the high school, they are feeling disconnected with the schools. And so what we have to do is look at what is going on at the primary level and see how do we replicate that with our same parents. How do we engage them more into the school process to ensure that they're feeling that they're partners in the education of their children. And so the goal is by June of 2020, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, in collaboration with district and building leaders, will implement programs that will result in a 10% increase in family engagement, partnerships, and perception of communication between families and the schools as measured by the data triangle, on family engagement survey that will be conducted in the spring of 2020. So what we are hoping for is that when we re-administer the survey to our parents again in the spring, we want to see a marked increase in how our parents feel about how we are engaging them as being partners in the education of their children. We want to ensure that parents know that we see them as partners, and we want to make sure that they feel welcome in the buildings, and we want them to be part of the education process for their children. And so the action steps is, our district and building leaders will survey families to determine their preferred means of communication. We'll ensure that we're meeting the needs of our parents. We'll ensure that parents have the option of choosing how they want to be contacted by the district. District and building leaders will increase their utilization of social media for communications with family. For those family who are using social media and want to use non-traditional way of being communicated with, we will engage them in the process. District and building leaders will increase the use of the district mobile library as a communication center for families. And district and building leaders will improve publicizing the availability of bilingual parent resources to ensure that we are reaching out to our bilingual and culturally linguistic parents. And district and building leaders will increase the scope of family engagement center resources to provide increased support and communication to our linguistically diverse families. So again, we want to ensure that all stakeholders in the school district are being reached out to, and that we are engaging them in the communication process and finding from them the best ways we can meet the needs of our families and our children. Okay, and that's it. If you have any questions, or comments, or concerns, we have.
Do you just want to comment on how the plans are the same in the other buildings?
So the plans are pretty similar, but they're not carbon copies of each other because each building is unique. So the problems are pretty similar. We will see that in each of the buildings. For example, they're addressing the issue of social and emotional learning, because those are things that we're pointing out. The issue of using data are similar for each of the buildings. We are also, the issue of doing walkthroughs so that principals and building leaders are in classrooms on a regular basis. That is also very similar. I know, for example, at the middle school, the issue of suspensions and student removals from classroom is one of the goals that will be addressed at middle school. And so when we as a team sat down to talk about this, both at central office and with building and leaders and the directors, we have 6 buildings in the district. And we don't believe that what is going on at Brookhaven Elementary and Delport Middle School are unique to those 2 buildings. We believe that there are areas that we can improve on. We believe that there are areas, we have a lot of strengths in the district, and we have a lot of resources, but we need to harness those resources to use them more cohesively. And we believe that that's consistent across the district. And so we are now approaching this from a very organized standpoint and in a more sustained way, and hopefully that we will see the improvements as we go forward.
Anybody else have questions? Mr. Patino?
Yeah, I guess I have more of a statement. I'm trying to find the tenet where we talked about suspensions and.
Social emotional learning.
That's 5, yeah, I just want to get to that spot. I guess it's more of a statement than a question. I'm always a little concerned when we talk about the rate of suspensions and student discipline.
Yes.
Because I know we want to try to put practices in place to alleviate poor behavior.
Yes.
But I also want to make sure that we're not punishing students for misbehaving in order to make a report look the right way. So we've been here before in the past, not with this administration. Just want to make sure that there's not, an ease up on punishments and discipline for students who deserve it, because we want to satisfy a statistic.
Okay. That's a point well taken. One of the things that we have to ensure is that suspension is not the first go-to measure for discipline. And I think as we look at children, one of the things, and I don't want to, I remembered, for example, when we were at the middle school, there was an incident at the day when we were doing the walkthrough, and one kid had an incident. And I looked at his record, and he was suspended repeatedly. The issue, or the question we asked was, what kind of supports were being provided to him when he came back to school? How was guidance and the social workers were being used to provide them with support? Because if you're constantly suspending and the child is returning and he's being suspended, it's not working. And so other interventions must be put in place. I think one of the other issues that we have to be cognizant of and we have to be truthful about is the issue of which kids are being suspended. Okay? And so when we start looking at data to look at which kids are being suspended and why they're being suspended, and are we using the same measure across the board for our suspensions? And without looking at data, we cannot say, we can improve our practice. So the idea of having data teams, so we're looking at data and that is being used to guide our practices. But we do have a lot of supports in the buildings that must be used to support children so we can keep them in school. And only the most extreme cases should be where suspension becomes the option. When we have situations where safety is of concern, then that is an issue. But if kids are being suspended or removed from classrooms because they didn't have their work, which some kids voice to us, or I turned on my phone, or stuff like that, then that has to be stopped. So by looking at data and looking at what are the infractions, then we can now target interventions to remediate those infractions. And so that's what we're going to try to do. Yes, sir.
I personally like the tenant number 5 as well, because I think that's an issue that's sort of long been
Yes.
overlooked.
Yes.
I do agree that in the past, I think many kids have been suspended for little
Yeah.
or nothing. I'm happy that we're taking another look at that, and I hope that we'll have a different approach to
Thank you.
suspension.
Just real quickly on tenant number 6, I noticed that as the children obviously got older,
Yes.
the parents were concerned about the communication with the needs and what was going on program-wise. I have seen at the middle school that there's definitely more communication when it comes to the program-wise.
Yeah.
I think that many of the parents probably were meaning more in terms of the specific needs of the student. And I'm not necessarily sure that our goals, our action plans completely on tenant 6 completely meet those needs.
And the reason we're having that,
So
additional action plans, action steps could be added to that.
Yeah.
For example, one of the things as I'm reading through this, I realized that we didn't put there. This past school year, in the elementary buildings, we dedicated, and for this upcoming year, one night for family engagement, right? Where each building invited parents to come in, and we provided refreshments. Parents came in, and they were in each of the elementary buildings. That is something that we have to start looking to do district-wide, where it's not coming in for, not just when you come in for parent-teacher conferences, but come in to say, here, because we had just adopted Math in Focus, we come in, we go over the math program, we talk to parents about how they can support students at home. I think we have to adopt that same approach at the secondary level, right? So that parents feel part of the process. They feel they're being given strategies for how they can support kids. Part of that might be to survey the parents about how can we serve you better, right? So we have to solicit that from parents as well. So this document is not the final piece. Part of our work is to find out from our customers, how can we better serve you, right? And then based on that feedback, now start implementing strategies to do that.
And my second comment is, you talk about your walkthrough and the
Yes.
walkthrough protocol,
Yes.
which I'm assuming is going to go to the building administrators and.
It's going to be done collaboratively with all of us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but
Yes.
the building administrators will be the ones doing those walkthroughs, or will it be?
All of us,
everyone?
district-wide.
Okay.
Right now, central office has consistently done walkthroughs.
Right.
We
But
wanna-
those are APPR
No,
walkthroughs, though.
we just did it just for,
Yeah.
we've been doing it regularly. Every year, we go to different buildings and do it. What we want to do now is to spread it across the district where all our district administrators are doing it. Where, for example, the principal at Critz is walking through Kramer and see what's going on in Kramer. That is the way we've developed capacity to ensure that we are all learning and growing together. So what we're going to do is to have a district-wide system where we're all visiting other buildings and looking for data and see what's going on here that I can implement over here. And so that we're all learning from each other and we can see, oh, this goes well over here, maybe I should try it in my building. So we are going to try to have a system-wide approach where we're all doing that together. Yes, sir.
I just want to capitalize on your first point, back to communication, and, because it kind of reminded me something, and everybody knows one of my pet peeves is always how we do back-to-school night at the elementary level, and, you know, we hear from principals and presentations in the gym for 30 minutes, and you have 10 or 15 minutes for your kid's classroom. You know, I've said it before, I'd like to see that reversed.
Yes.
You know, I spoke recently, or maybe back, not recently, beginning of the year, with a colleague who's got elementary school children somewhere out west, and they have like a social. They don't even go to the classroom
Yes.
unless they want to. It's a walkthrough, and it just, I think we really need to talk to other districts as well and come up with something out of the box, because it's very regimented. It's very much the same how we do it, and you know. Especially, you know, and when you look at the results and the percentages of family engagement, it kind of makes sense, right? How it goes, right? Elementary school, you're always more engaged in what's happening because your kids are young, and as you go, you lose engagement. But I think we really need to think outside the box, especially in the middle school.
Yes.
How we're going to get parents in and have conversations, because we talk a lot about lack of communication, and there's always discussion about lack of transparency, but when you go to some of these events and the way we're doing it now, there's nobody there.
Yes.
We're at a board meeting right now, and there's maybe 2 community members, and there's 3 watching online, and those are all problems that we've tried to address, but I think at the building level,
Yes.
we need to do something much, much different. And, you know, I think you get the point. It just,
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but, you know, what we're doing right now isn't, like parents, you ask anybody in September to sit in the gym and Vern Critz for half an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's hanging out at the back door because it's the only place to get air, and we're watching slideshows, and they introduce every single member of the staff, and that's all nice. But I'd like to get to business, and I'd like to get in the classroom, and I'd like to talk to my kid's teacher, because that's more valuable to me than seeing a presentation on pictures from the first couple days of school.
Yes.
I can see that on social media. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. Mrs. Sander.
Well, on the secondary level, I'd like to see the communication that we already have be more meaningful, and this is something that I've brought up many, many times. You know, we do our progress reports, and 9 times out of 10, the information is absolutely useless. I don't want to know whether my daughter was a pleasure to have in class. I need the academic information, and still, to this day, 9 times out of 10, it's not there.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that we can pay better attention to what we already do in terms of making it meaningful, and then, of course, adding to that as we go on. I keep pushing forward to bring those secondary parents in. A few years ago, when we had the district-wide curriculum fair, it brought a lot of parents in to see programs on the secondary level that they didn't know that we had. And we got such positive feedback on that, and I really hope that we can bring that back.
We have math day too.
Well,
Years ago.
that's all gone.
That was all that stuff that was,
Yeah.
you bring up a
The
good
art,
point
the
about
art
curriculum.
day is gone,
We had
math is gone.
a math day, and it was like, you know, I can't remember, I don't even think it was in
There
the
was-
respective kids' building. I think it was at the middle
The
school, or maybe my,
district-wide-
Yeah.
district-wide.
I mean, but
It's a lower
Mr. Santo
level,
brings
but
up you know, a
we're missing
good
those
point
things.
about those types of, you know, forums that will bring people in and showcase what we're doing and learn about it. It's gotta be a different approach.
Thank you.
Any questions over here? I just wanted to reiterate the concern about possible disparity
Yes.
in disciplinary practices, and to make sure you're taking a very hard look at that,
Yes.
and that the teaching staff has both the resources and training and in order to handle situations that should not rise to a
Yes.
disciplinary proceeding, but rather, you know, a change of behavior within the classroom. And I would like to see that our staff does have the support to get that accomplished without having the child, and a lot of these are little children, because these numbers are coming like out of Brookhaven Elementary, taken up to the principal or assistant principal. So can you incorporate that within
Yes.
what you're
Okay.
doing on the tenants?
Okay, so disparity in suspensions?
Not just suspensions,
And
but
removals.
removals, calling a child to task for a certain behavior. If you're calling a child in one segment of the population to task, criticizing them, but not calling
Yes.
a child in a different,
No, absolutely, and the truth is, when we start looking at data, we disaggregate them, and we look at them by ethnic group or subgroups, we can start making informed decisions about looking for patterns, right? And so, as I said, we collect a lot of data, but there has not been a systematic approach where we're looking at, we're reviewing the data to use that data to guide our practice, right? So until we start looking and saying, how many kids are suspended? Who are the kids who are being suspended? What are the issues why they're suspended? And then we start taking a closer look at those things. We also believe that the issue of student engagement is important, right? If students are engaged in the learning process, we're hoping to see less disruptive behavior. So part of our task of being in classrooms on a regular basis is to monitor and see how engaged students are, right? And to ensure that, if kids are intellectually engaged in the learning process, and they feel welcomed. We want them to feel welcomed, and we want them to know that the schools belong to them, and that is a primary focus of what we should be doing in the buildings. So we're hoping to tackle that issue and hopefully see a reduction in those numbers as we go forward.
So we're going to conduct the survey again in the future?
Yes, we will do the survey again in spring, because we are looking at what we just did as a baseline, and to see in the spring, are we seeing improvements or are we seeing decreases? So we will be doing it again April of the next school year.
you have another question? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, obviously, I realize you have year-long goals. I was just hoping that perhaps the board could get an update in January on
Where we are?
certain things,
Yes.
such as attendance.
Absolutely, we could do
Things
that.
like
Yes, we could do
Because
that.
that's something that's been
Yes.
an issue that I've been concerned about. Actually had shared that with Ms. Hayes
Okay.
before.
So we could do a mid-year review, because if, on each of the tenants, we have a mid-year of where we should be by the mid-year, so we can do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's one of the things I was exactly going to bring up. This is all very good stuff, and I'm really excited that we have this organized approach, but I just want to make sure that it actually moves forward.
Yes.
And the forums that trustees DeSanto and Cheney brought up, I would, is it too late to implement those for this upcoming school year?
No, I think once we all sit down and start planning about what are some things we want to do, those are things that will be on the table to say, let's look at, the math day. I know that's something that was brought up. So we will have discussions, and yes.
Right. But even the back to school thing, I would just love to see.
The back to school thing, to be honest with you, as a former building principal, I will tell you that's a building decision. We don't direct the principals about how. We will take the feedback we've been given, and we will tell them that based on the feedback, here's what we've been, but they're not directed about how to approach meet the teacher night.
Right.
But what we will do is to let them know that there's a feeling that parents, and all parents, especially at the beginning of the school year, they want to hear from the child's teacher. Right? That's why they're going there. So we want to give parents more opportunities to have FaceTime with the teacher, so we'll bring that back to our principals. But we don't direct the principals about how they conduct it, but we'll give them the feedback when we proceed.
And again, just piggyback, and the forums and doing the after-school is wonderful, and it is great to get the community out. I just want to stress that I do believe that they're specifically talking about the needs of their child.
Yes.
As a parent of a middle schooler, and I know that I've heard you echo this and you as well, to do like a meet the teacher, it's very quick, and then conferences are even quicker.
Yes.
So it becomes very challenging, and it's challenging for the teachers because they have a lot of students and they want, there's so many parents that want to be met with. So I do believe that that's part of what the community is talking about, is having that opportunity to really talk to the teacher about their child. 5 minutes isn't cutting it. So
last year we made a decision for the second year level for it to be 10 minutes. So we are, yeah.
Okay, whatever, it doesn't,
So
yeah.
last year we did have, because I remember the first time when we did Canyon Creek, it was 5 minutes. And for the second time, we moved it up to 10 minutes. So for middle and high school, it's 10 minutes going forward.
And I think, just so that we're gearing not just about the programs and everything that South Country has to offer, I do believe a lot of the parents, and we're gonna see the same thing if we're not being able to reach out to those secondary parents and really, something simple that we have in my district is 3 for 3. 3 phone calls on 3 positive things. Sometimes a parent needs a quick phone call, hey, kid's doing great, and then other times they do need a quick phone call like, maybe we should talk a little bit. So I do think that some of that goes along with that last one, so.
Any more questions or discussion? Then I'll call for a motion to approve the school comprehensive education plan that has been presented.
Plans. So
Plan.
there's one for
Each of the
district
buildings.
and one for
Okay.
Brookhaven.
The plans.
Yes.
A motion by Ms. DeSanto, second by Mr. Nix. All in favor? 7 in favor. Approval is granted.
Okay, the next, we have a few, I don't know if the president wants me to take the reading, the first readings as a bulk. The 2, 3, 4, and 5, I can briefly, quickly surmise them. They're only first readings. Would you like me to do that?
Yes, please.
So with regard to items 2, 3, 4, and 5, we have the first reading policy 5672, information, security breach and notification. First reading of policy 5674, data, networks, and security access. First reading for policy 7511, immunization of students, and the first reading of a code of conduct revision. Very quickly, the first one, policy 5672, is an active policy with very minor revisions, as we will see in the red line markup. Policy 5674 is actually a new policy suggested by our policy provider, so you don't see any markups in that. The next policy, 7511, is the immunization of students. That's an active policy, and as the board is aware, the revision is based on new legislation removing religious exemptions for vaccinations. And so for the board's information, we have 48 youngsters that fell under that guideline last school year. Those families have been notified, by the way.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Is there, and it might be for council, there's not, I mean, we have no choice because it's now law, correct? I just want to confirm that because I saw some chatter in a neighboring district about an effort to curtail this type of policy change. So I just want to make sure it's law. We don't really have a choice.
Correct.
Thank you.
And finally, the code of conduct revision. The board, as you know, approves the code of conduct annually. This revision links the appendix we created last school year to the current code. Council feels it tightens our how would you say it?
Your code of conduct?
No,
Is that
it
the
tightens the connection of the appendix in the code of conduct, and that's why that revision is there. I offer those items as first readings for the board's review, and any questions, and would like to bring them back for a second reading and action at our August 21st meeting.
So you don't need anything except to
No.
have it on the agenda next time?
Correct, unless the board has any questions on any of those policies.
I have a question.
Sure.
In regards to the policy, the code of conduct, is the list in which the law enforcement describes the clothing in which, are gang related, section 3.13, clothing in which a law enforcement agency is currently considered gang related, is the list of those clothing items actually provided to the parents or students?
No, we have lists of hand signs in there, in the appendix.
But it says clothing.
The appendix, I believe, also goes through a list of clothing that's currently
Right.
That may have the
gang
symbol on it,
related.
right?
That's right.
The appendix has more detail.
And that's provided to the,
Yes, Yes, that was already distributed. So this change is only better connecting the appendix with the code. Any further questions? Okay, so the last item for discussion, item 6, our final is the board priorities for the 2019-20 school year. I have included the previous year's priorities on board docs to begin our conversation. I would like to get the board's thoughts on priorities. Generally, we do also talk about this at the board retreat, and administration prepares a draft to come back to the board. Last school year, I think it took 2 drafts to get the priorities done, and I think we got them done right in September-ish.
Around that,
I'm not
yeah.
too sure. So I don't need real detail tonight. However, if any trustees do have some guidance for me, I'd love to take them because I can begin to craft priorities. Yes, Ms. Ruda.
Priorities 1, 2, and 3 are similar. I do think that we could combine them a bit. My priority 3 does mention the social emotional. I'd also like to say the physical development of our students as well, because I think that's an important part of the growing process and learning process. Priority 1 says that they'll receive skilled instruction leading to attainment of grade level learning expectations or above. I don't know that that is something that would be, I don't want to say capable, but we have a lot of students who are either RTI students or they're significantly below grade level. So that language in there, I don't know encompasses all of our children, and I don't know that it's a goal that is attainable for any school district at any time. So you said that they want them at grade level or above.
Okay, well, I would,
So I'm putting that out there
Okay.
for discussion and for thought. So it might be something within the language. And 7 and 8, I felt like we're kind of close and that we could somehow combine those.
yeah, listen, we can go right off the board with these things. I just offered these as items that we have had. One year we had 6 priorities.
And again, just a few things that I looked at and I just wanted to put it out there.
Any other feedback?
When I read it, I felt that there were several large priorities, maybe 3 or 4 as priorities, and some of these other things would be like bullet points under them of what we would do in order to get to the goal of accomplishing it. So I'm just wondering, if we can get it organized in a easier way to focus it. Ms. Aruda has mentioned the curriculum and the social, emotional, physical growth as well as the academic growth. If that could be one category. Another would be sort of the school climate. I'm calling it school climate, and maybe there's a better way to phrase it, but to make it a safe and vibrant learning environment for the children, but also one where the teachers are able to actually teach and do their job. So that to me would be another big priority. And then, of course, the parental and community involvement aspect. And we can draw on things that have worked well in the past, like the Education Foundation fundraiser. Well, that's one segment and one little bit, but it helps a lot, and there may be other resources out in the community we could bring in to help. So it's just in terms of organization I'm mainly focusing on, and when you said sometimes we discuss this at the retreat,
We could further
would be
discuss it.
further discuss it that way.
You made me think when you said organization, what about organizing it in the form of the tenets required by the state? Because I think you hit on just about each of those other than curriculum and building leadership. Is that an easier way? Because the priorities should certainly fall in line with what we're trying to achieve through the improvement plan.
I think it would be good to have it coordinated.
See what that might look like.
I've always felt they were very general and without anything to really say, okay, we've done this or we've done that. So I do like the fact that we're looking at it being a little bit more structured, a little bit, with the steps in place. And not that we, that we may find halfway through that something's not working, and then we can tweak it from there and revisit it from there. But without a shadow of a doubt, I love the idea that you, under that third priority, when you talked about it being welcoming to everyone, and I do think that we need to put that in there as well for our staff. The morale in our buildings is down, and I do believe at this time, I think it is a board priority that we create an environment that encompasses everybody, our administrators, our staff, our community, our children. So I definitely would like to see that as a board priority.
So that'll be on our list for the board retreat?
And I'll
Among
try
other
to-
things?
I'll try to organize something
Okay.
with that.
I was also thinking, either those tenets or possibly just use the categories we use for our committees, because it kind of boils that down to 4 areas,
That's a
and
nice
then
idea as
it's
well.
logical that that committee would
Mhm.
potentially focus on that topic.
Okay, I'll look at both.
Anything from this side of the table?
No, all set.
All set? Okay. Next, we've got board consent agenda. Curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
We can do 1 through 4.
Too many to do 1 through 4.
Exciting.
Administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in schedules G1 through G4. We do have the textbooks here this evening. Directors are also here to answer any questions any board members may have with regard to the suggested textbook adoptions.
Can I see the history textbook?
Right here. I'm sorry,
There's
we
2
kind
of
of
them.
stopped.
Yeah, that's what that, yeah.
While we're passing, can I ask a general question about these books for one of the teachers? Generally, how far through the book does a class get before the end of the year?
Ms. O'Hagan,
With
you want to-
That's it. I can answer that because I taught AP history. The whole book. APs are very fast-paced curriculum, and you have to meet certain college board expectations to meet that. So all of it is really essentially covered. But there's some really exciting new shifts and practices with the new college board expectations. And the argument skills are in there now, and where for AP Gov, for example, students are really asked to act like political sciences now. And AP History, they're really, the practices are now, they're thinking like a historian. So it's great skills, argumentation there, there's PBL aspect in there, informed action. So that's what's really excited about these new texts, and that's the features that we really found were great for our students.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Mr. Parker?
How many students do you have in your AP class?
So for next year, there will be 3 sections. Mr. White will have that in AP US History. So we're looking at about almost 70 students for AP US. Government is almost 80 right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Trent, did you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Are we starting to have discussion? I'm sorry, about these topics. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have it?
I don't know if we
didn't make a
started
motion.
here with
Okay.
the motion or
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Let's
I'm
take a
sorry.
motion. Got excited about the books. Let's have a motion
Features are very exciting too.
to accept items
C1
G1 through G4. I'll need a motion and a second. Motion by Ms. DeSanto, second Mr. Trent. Any more discussion?
Yes, the science curriculum that we are receiving, I'm just starting to take a peek through this. In terms of the materials and the resources, some of them are consumable resources, some of them, I know typically they're purchased throughout the kit, but then there's other things that, for example, here, black pepper and pasta, do we have a budget in place at the building levels to be able to purchase these items for these
You're talking about
activities?
to replenish them?
Or, well, I'm pretty sure the pasta doesn't come in the science kit, like for this particular
You're
activity.
talking about the supplies for the
The
labs
supplies.
that go along with the curriculum.
To get the books, we're getting the kits as well.
Right.
So the company will furnish us with the kits. We're purchasing, right now we're looking for this upcoming school year,
Uh-huh.
to purchase equipment, resources for grades 3 through 8. And they're getting the consumable resources, online resources, and the kits that go with each grade level.
Okay.
Based on what we've been told, that the kits should last for approximately 3 years, and then we will replenish that as we go forward.
Okay, do we have something in place in case the kids don't, just speaking for, that
Well,
in
if
case
the kids don't have them, then we'll get them through the company.
That,
We'll
okay, through the
purchase
company,
them.
even the consumables and things along those natures, or at least have a budget within the buildings
Yeah.
to be able to
So going
provide.
forward, because this is a new adoption, then we'll have to budget for replenishing, what needs to be replenished. So building principals or directors will let us know what needs to be replenished, and then we will replenish them.
Okay. So when will this start? In September or?
We're hoping to start in September.
Okay, so then
For
we can
grades
get
3,
feedback
this is
immediately to
grades
see if there's
3.
anything not in the kits.
Yes.
I don't
This
know.
is, the grades 3 through 8
Right.
in September, K through 2 the following year.
Okay.
And following up on your question, in order to do some of the experiments that are set out there, it sounds like someone needs to go to the grocery store. Couldn't you just send somebody to Costco or someplace instead of going to the company that's doing the kits?
So what we're saying is, initially, we'll purchase the kits, but it might be more feasible to purchase them ourselves. But initially, in the initial purchase, we are getting everything that comes with the program so teachers can have everything to start. As a matter of fact, some of the students' workbooks could be printed and bound and given to the students, but with the time frame that we're working with, we want to purchase it.
Right.
So we have it to start the year instead of trying to send out and get it printed.
Right.
Right? So going forward, though, a lot of those things we can do to cut costs by printing some of the things.
So if we can, it's just, as soon as these kits come in,
Yes.
to make sure that the items are there, rather than delaying the instruction, and that goes, myself, I know I've gone into science kits and you go to do an experiment and all of a sudden the macaroni or whatever it is, it doesn't come in the
They have
kit
told us
and
it will
you're,
be there, so if we experience that, they have to send it to us,
Okay.
because they tell us we're getting the kits we're getting all the materials that will be needed.
for
children.
all of the
Yes.
activities, okay? Okay.
Any more discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor of adopting G1 through 4? Okay, good. 7 in favor, none opposed. That passes.
Yes. Moving to personnel, administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in Schedule H1 through H10.
Is there a motion to accept the recommendations, H1 through H10? Ms. Aruda, second by Mr. Pacini. All in favor? 7, I think you voted in favor? Yes, all in favor, 7 votes for it, it passes.
And because we have an internal promotion, I would like to announce that promotion. The board, for the community's information, the board just approved Ms. Jenna Restivo, the current guidance counselor, to serve as Director of Guidance and Counseling Programs here in the district. She will begin September 1st as her effective date, but as many of us know, Jenna just had a little baby boy named Luke, so that may be delayed a little bit. But congratulations to Jenna on both her appointment and her newborn. And moving on to business, administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I1 through I10.
Now, this is the one where I need to break out I3, so I can
Oh, okay, so then, why don't,
step aside.
let me make another recommendation. Administration recommends approval of business items reflected in I1 and 2 and I4 through 10.
Do I have a motion to accept those items that were just recommended? Mr. Nix, and second, Mr. Trent. Any discussion on those? All in favor? 7 in favor, so that passes.
And the administration recommends approval of business item reflected in Schedule I3.
And I'm recusing myself because of my past involvement with the Bellport United Methodist Church, and I'm yielding to Jack Nix to take care of getting this approved.
Do we have a motion to approve item I3? Mr. Santo, seconded by Mr. Trent. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?
One abstention.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Oh,
Any public commentary?
Yeah, we
Cards?
get to ask the public
None.
again. No cards, no commentary? Ah. Any closing remarks? We'll start with Mr. Trent.
I'm looking forward to going to the August graduation ceremony. Dr. Johnny, do you know how many students are graduating?
Well, not at this time.
Not this one, okay. All right. Do you know how many kids participate in the?
How many do you think might be graduating or in some group?
We're likely to have, we have 25 seniors, 20, we should have at least 20 graduating.
Great. And that's all I got.
Mr. Parker?
Oh, I could sit here all night and talk about the positive things. And I'm experiencing just being a part of this group. I want to thank everyone for electing me, and I have to tell you, I do appreciate very much the interaction that we share with each other, but making life better for teachers, children, and of course, each other.
Mr. Nix?
Nothing for me tonight.
Nothing for me.
Ms. Aruda?
I'm excited that we are doing a lottery for the pre-K earlier this year. It definitely eases some stress for some parents. I'm hoping that as we move forward, we can also start to bring up a little bit of when schedules and teachers are released, as it eases the stress for the parents and the kids as well. So I'm hoping that as we start to move forward, we can start to get that information out a little bit earlier than we have in the past, just like we've done with pre-K.
Mr. Santo?
Well, actually, I was thrilled that we have our pre-K lottery coming up and that there are 74 full-time slots. Makes me very happy. It's been quite a few years coming. And I wanted to know, do we have the number on the current overall enrollment at this point?
I'm sorry, which enrollment?
Pre-K.
Pre-K? Yes, I think we have 105 requesting full day. Hold on, I have that somewhere. Pretty handy. Give me a second. Okay, I'm sorry. 105 full day and 43 half day are currently registered.
All right. And will we have the bus going around a bit in places?
Well, the bus has got a schedule. So the bus is now at Boys and Girls Club for an event there tomorrow. So it is going around
Good,
just
good.
by its schedule.
And we still have some spots that we can fill, and I'd love to have full enrollment.
Yeah, we've been beating the bushes. And I'm hoping, as a result of us working on that AM, PM care, that we won't lose
Okay.
anyone.
Yes, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's nothing else, someone can make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Trent? Second? No hands? Oh, Ms. Aruda?
Okay.
No, any discussion? All in favor of the motion? The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm going home next week.